Good evening, everybody. Metalhead here. Hope you're going well. Day number 27. No, sorry, 26 of Vlogust. Yes, just a day ahead of my times. And today I'm going to talk about visa applications I've had to deal with. Now, as somebody who holds a British and Australian passport, I have a wide variety of countries I can visit without a visa. Around roughly 150 or so, depending on which passport I use. I know that a Australian passport can get me into Iran with a visa on arrival, but a British passport can't. An Australian passport allows me to live in New Zealand. A British passport allows me to live in Ireland. There's pretty much no difference between the passports in North and Central America, but South America, Australians have to pay to get into Chile, Argentina, Paraguay, and Brazil, and British people don't because of good relations. Now, it's going to mention a couple of visa applications I've taken in my time. I remember I went to China many years ago to change planes, and I thought I needed a visa because I was supposed to run around Beijing for a couple of hours before going to London. But when I flew into Shanghai airport, they gave me a stay permit. They just didn't really tend to recognize that I had a transit visa on my Australian passport. I initially went back to China many years later in Shenzhen, where I got a visa on the border for a couple of hundred yuan, so it wasn't too bad. But I couldn't go any further outside of Shenzhen. The Iranian visa I applied for 11 years ago, I wouldn't really say it was complicated, but it was strife with old school and nostalgia. First, I had to pay somebody with a Swiss bank account. Then, they telexed my code to the Iranian embassy in Canberra. So then, literally, I had to fill in a form and send money to the Iranian embassy in Canberra and get my passport back a week later. That allowed me to enter Iran, even though I only stayed for a couple of days. It was well worth it. Even though there's a bit of a backlash of, once you've visited some certain countries of the world, you can't go to America. Doesn't bother me. I once bought a visa for Yemen before the war broke out, but I didn't end up going to Yemen. Paid about $100 for it. And the reason I didn't go was I was having back issues in Sofia, Bulgaria. I was really struggling to figure out what to do with my life. Did I want to live in the UK or did I want to go back to Australia? And I was in Dubai, but and even though I had that valid visa, I didn't put it to good use. So there's been a couple of times I've gotten visas for countries like Burundi, Egypt, and Vietnam that I've not ended up going. The Russian visa wasn't that problematic. To me, I just saw it as a piece of cake. As soon as you buy a Russian tourist invitation, you basically get it in your inbox just like that. Now, the forms were quite long, and I did have to write a separate piece of paper about all the countries I'd been to in 10 years. So they are quite stingy, but the great thing was, it was cheaper to apply for a Russian visa as a British citizen than an Australian citizen. I had to pay money at the Suriname consulate on the border with Suriname and French Guiana, but then when I left Suriname to go to Guyana, the lady at the embassy told me they weren't handing out all these tourist cards, you had to do it online. So, on the last day in Guyana, I'm just sitting on my laptop, filling out this form, and then I finally get my visa on my inbox, but then I'm having trouble connecting to Wi-Fi when I'm in Suriname. I'm just trying to I'm please don't hold me up with this because I need to pass through Suriname to get back to French Guiana to get to Brazil. But I wasn't aware that Suriname was gonna start doing these online visa things. Because if I did knew that, I would have basically just bought a double entry Surinamese visa and bossed my uncle. In Zambia and Zimbabwe, on the border crossing between either Botswana or yeah. Yeah, you can get a visa for $50 called the Casa visa, which allows you entry into Zambia and Zimbabwe. Around the time, it used to cost you like $50 per visa, but then entering Zambia from Botswana would allow you to apply for the special visa, which means that once you got to Zimbabwe, you wouldn't have to pay money for it. But unfortunately, there were only certain border crossings you could cross into Zimbabwe from. Um, when I left Zambia many months later, British people didn't need a visa anymore, so it was a bit of a relief. Um, yeah. Uh, when I went to Azerbaijan, there was e-visa, so it was a piece of cake. I'm trying to think of all the other e-visas I've ever... wait. Uh, in Myanmar, like on the border with Thailand, if you... when you enter Myanmar, they'll ask you for 500 Thai baht, which is more than $10. So say to them, oh, I just only have $10, so basically that's much cheaper than 500 Thai baht. Basically, when I went to Myanmar for a day, I could only stay in a certain part of Myanmar for 14 days. And worst of all, which is the normal procedure, is that they actually hold you onto your passport in the office, and you're given this permit to, travel around the area. But I was only going to be there for a day. In Laos, I got my visa for $35 But in Cambodia, because I didn't have a passport photograph, they charged me an extra 100 Thai baht. It was like tea money. And there's a really big scam going along on the Thai-Cambodia border where basically people persuade you to go to a Cambodian consulate and get a visa there, which costs a ton of money. It's much cheaper if you just ignore all those touts and just go to the Thai immigration, stamp out Thailand, and then make your way to the Cambodian side and pay them, like, what, is it $30 now for a 30-day visa for Cambodia? Belarus, I got my visa at the embassy, but they only allowed me to pay in euros. As a matter of fact, I was in the UK at the time, so just weird having to pay my visa fee in euros. I was worried I was gonna get it denied because basically I did have travel insurance, but I wasn't really showing how much excessive of medical things. I already done everything right. So I just thought, look, I'm going to go away right now, and I'm going to send you an email to some insurance that I've just bought off the internet. Which, it's always quite important to have travel insurance before you apply for visas, because a lot of countries, like, Russia, Iran, and Belarus, will make you apply for travel insurance before you even apply for a visa. The greatest visa I ever got was in Papua New Guinea because it didn't cost me a single cent. And they gave it to me on arrival as a British citizen, but at the time Australians weren't allowed to get that visa. So, checking into my flight, they were like, do not show your Australian passport in Papua New Guinea. There was no problems because I wasn't born in the UK or I was born in Australia. I don't like switching between the two passports because the only time I use an Australian passport was to come home. It was... I've said this many times before how the South Africans screwed with me on their border. All because I had two passports and this guy was asking me for bribes. It was a huge racist incident which really did upset me. I was really depressed for the last 10 days of my trip because I went nowhere. And it kind of made me feel like, oh, he's a racist or I'm a racist. How dare have we been doing stupid things to each other for the last 300 years or so, We're supposed to live in unity and harmony in South Africa, no matter where we come from or what is our background. Anyway, it's Metalhead, over and out.